Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Monday, the beginning of a new week, so I wish you a wonderful week. Today's video will be very long because so much happened, and I have decided for that reason to divide today's video into geographical parts of the world because I see it as one great conflict, many different wars. I'm talking about Syria, Georgia, Russia-Ukraine and United States. The news, there's no war in the US, but the news come from there. Before we begin, I have to say I am able to do what I do thanks to Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. If you are a monthly member, active member, write to me and buy me a coffee and I will be sending you out this Rehi patch for your support. Thank you for being a monthly member. Thank you for allowing me to do what I do. Let's get into the news. We'll begin with Georgia because for the fourth day in a row, massive protests have been going there against the illegal government, Russian-backed government. It could turn into what Ukrainian protests turned into in 2013 and 14. This could be the start of a new Georgia. Let's go through everything. Very quick recap. Georgian Dream, the ruling illegal party, Russian-backed party, officially refused 4 days ago the EU partnership, EU integration. Protests started. The sitting president of Georgia announced that she will not step down because there has not been a democratically elected new government because the Georgian Dream is illegally, non-democratically elected. So the president refuses to step down, supports the people. Now let's go through the most notable videos one by one from the streets of Georgia. I think you should see them. This is the beginning, it could be the beginning of a new Georgian state and nationality, the national awakening of Georgia. In this video, we can see a Georgian man wearing an EU flag showing the police brutality videos from the night before, and news are covering this, and he is then detained by the police, taken away. The Georgian people on the street protesting against the Russian-backed Georgian Dream. Police forces are extremely brave. The people are extremely brave. This is illustrated by this woman right here who is standing against water cannons infused with pepper spray. The police started doing that to disperse the crowds, and this woman is demonstratively washing her hair with the police water cannon to show that we can do it, we can turn anything bad into something good. Here is another clip of the same woman wearing a Georgian flag and washing her hair with the water cannon. Standing for the freedom of the people, for democratic rights and for the EU partnership integration in the future, for the Georgian people. She is a hero. Most of the protests are happening around the parliament building. The police is protecting the parliament building, and this is of course what the government is supposed to be. The Georgian Dream, who has illegally taken power in Georgia and is fully Russian funded and Russian backed. This is what the people are here protesting against. And yesterday, on the fourth day of the protests, a lot changed, different from the 3 days before, because the protests got the biggest they have ever been, and they got not violent, but semi-violent. The pro-Russian government is on the brink. There are twice as many people on the Rustaveli square and street as yesterday, and you can see it from the footage. It's truly a massive crowd. Some people have done the math. Supposedly there are over 100,000 people actively on that square. Another thing that changed yesterday that hasn't been like that before is that the protesters started taking streets into their control and highways also. Here you can see them blocking a highway, not letting the cars through. This is not just the protests. This is perhaps a chance for the Georgian people to capture their country for their own, for themselves, and change the path of it from a Russian path to a European Union path. But one of the biggest things that changed yesterday with the protest is the first usage of Molotov cocktails. This is always a turning point in the protests, where lethal means are started to being used. Protests begin to be violent. The police will also begin to be more violent. But this is escalation. And of course, I'm not judging here anybody, but a message to the Georgian people from my part would be, take your country back using any means necessary. Here we can see the Molotov cocktails from another angle being used, thrown in front of the police, not at the police yet, but this is a massive escalation. Following that, we see from yesterday a new level of organization with the protesters. Here we can see gas mask wearing protesters working together immediately to pick up pepper spray canisters and throw them back or isolate them so everybody else who does not have gas masks can breathe freely and stay at the square. The police goal is to disperse people. If there's few people, you're going to detain them. If there's thousands, tens of thousands, they own the street. So if the canisters are removed very quickly with seconds, people are not being dispersed. Therefore, this new level of organization with the few gas masked guys, they're making a lot of difference. Another big change that happened yesterday, you can see it on this video. The firefighters are supposed to bring water to the police water cannons one by one with the trucks. Well, yesterday, for the first time, they demonstratively poured their water tanks empty on the street, not to give the police the water that will be used to disperse protesters. Here you can see it happening. People are applauding them. This is demonstratively to show that the firefighters have picked a side, and it's the democratic side of the people. Now, following all of this, we get Georgian commanders from Ukraine. Believe it or not, there are hundreds of Georgian fighters in Ukraine. They have their own unit even. Georgian unit commanders fighting in Ukraine have issued a joint statement. Commanders from the Caucasian Union Military Committee held an emergency meeting and decided to return to Georgia. They're leaving Ukraine and going back to their homeland because things are happening. Now, awaiting for the signal from the President Salome Zourabishvili. We are ready to protect the population of Georgia in any way, they state. President of Georgia Salome Zourabishvili will not leave her post until a legitimate parliament and president are elected. My mandate remains in effect until a legally elected parliament appoints somebody to replace me. I am with you and will stay with you. And she's talking about the people protesting against the Russian-backed illegal Georgian Dream Party and the police. This concludes all my topics with Georgia. I have handpicked these videos and topics so you would know the most important. There are massive amounts of information coming out of Georgia, but I don't want to waste your time. So I think you have seen and you know the most important clips and information right now. I'll keep you in the loop of what's happening on Wednesday. Now we will go to Syria. Bear in mind, this is all connected extremely directly with Russia. Georgian Dream in Georgia, backed by Russia. We now jump to Syria, Assad's regime, backed by Russia. Like in Georgia for the last 4 days, in Syria also, the situation has been developing for the last 4 days. The counteroffensive of the rebels. Before I start covering this, I need to give you a disclaimer because this conflict is massively difficult, as illustrated on the screen right here. The blue lines are which the country support. Red lines is what the country attacks or the organization attacks. It is so intertwined, it's so complicated. I cannot even pretend to take any sides here. I'm just here to cover this so you are in the loop and you know what's happening. I'll show you all the important footage and you will know every important bit of information after this 10-minute segment here. Also, just to illustrate the same point on a map, red marked by Assad regime and loyalists, green marked by rebels backed by Turkey, and yellow or light green is marked by another kind of rebels against the Assad regime, but different kind of rebels, not backed by Turkey, which they are called Syrian Democratic Forces. So the dark green backed by Turkey is called the Syrian National Army, and the light green different rebels are called the Syrian Democratic Forces. So in this civil war there's many more sides, but three biggest sides are these three sides you can see on the map right here. And before we begin with the serious topic, I gotta give you, because Assad flew to Moscow immediately, all joking aside, things are getting pretty serious. Okay. I know this is such a dad joke, but I found it so amusing. Let's get serious now. Just to illustrate how fast it all happened, I mean the counteroffensive of the rebels, in 4 days they took back almost 8 years of stagnation. This is tender, 8 years apart between this post and the retweet, and the map is almost identical. Everything what Russia, Iran and Assad achieved since then has been resetted. And considering that no point Assad lost all of Aleppo, not even during the height of the rebel expansion, it is more than just back to square one. It is a massive advancement of the rebel and defeat for the Russian army in Syria and Assad's army in Syria. And this post is from 2016 and the map looks almost identical to what we're seeing today. As I mentioned before, the Assad's forces and the two counter-rebels against them, and these two counter-rebels previously also fought each other, but now it seems like they have made a deal. Turkish-backed Syrian rebels, SNA, have moved into Al Rifat. This settlement you can see on the map right here. But this was controlled by the other rebels. I'm sorry, this is very confusing, but I think you'll get it. Without a fight. 8 years after the SDF has taken the important town from the FSA. Can be very confusing with the abbreviations, I know. The point is, the Turkish-backed rebels entered the settlement that was controlled by the other rebels, and they were fighting before, but now they have made a deal. They're not fighting each other, they're both fighting against Assad. New notice to the SDF by the HTFS-led administration of the military operations. This is a message from one rebel group to another, noting that their fight is with the regime and Iranian proxy militias, not the SDF. Offers them to leave Aleppo toward northeast Syria with their weapons without harassment. So the deal includes them treating each other with respect, allowing each other to keep the weapons, staying on separate geographical locations, but not in an armed conflict. Very important. Affirms that Kurds are an integral part of Syria and are afforded the same rights with everyone else in the country. Now, this is very important because Kurds in the Middle East almost in no country get the same rights as everybody else. So this would be one of the first. Assad's army, backed by the Russian army, has retreated from an extremely big area. They have left a massive power vacuum. As mentioned earlier, Syrian rebels have taken al-Sarifa and might be even all the way south to canisters. I do not see any organized Assad regime presence in the immediate area south of Aleppo, though staggerers might be still everywhere. East of Aleppo, Turkish-backed rebels, SNA, Syrian National Army, continue to fill the vacuum and have taken Kuwaites Air Base as well as local power stations, moving fast on Aleppo, coming from the east. Aleppo is a massive city, over 2 million population, and it fell within hours 2 days ago. It's no secret that Assad's government is fully funded and weaponized by Russia, by the Kremlin. And in this video you can see a Soviet .U missile system. It's very imprecise, but the Assad's regime now using this Soviet missile system to strike back at the rebels. By the way, talking about an old Cold War era weapon systems being used in the Syrian civil war, I know you will not be ready for it, but you will love this. The strike against Iranian troops last night near al-Mayadin was conducted by United States A-10 Warthogs. During the attack, around 50 troops and several vehicles were destroyed. Iran is directly controlling the western part of the Euphrates River in the sector, while the SDF forces control the eastern portion. A-10 Warthogs went some brrrt and eliminated some Iranian-backed militias coming from Iraq to Syria. These militias were supposed to fight on the side of a Russian-backed Assad regime, but they were eliminated with some brrrts. Lovely. Iranian handwriting is clear, much like Israel discovered all over. Now the rebel forces are discovering the same tunnel systems all over. This is an Iranian-styled tunnel system on the ground because Iranians love tunnels because they have been under sanctions and airstrikes for almost 4 decades. Safest place for them to be is underground, so the handwriting is the same. This is a fresh tunnel system somewhere on the land that the rebels just liberated, and it's unfinished, of course, but it's Iran spelled everywhere. In this video, my friends, you can see rebels capturing one of the biggest military bases from Assad's regime. Also, Russian equipment and military was stationed here. Talking about the Kyiv air base east of Aleppo. Turkish-backed rebels are now in control of the strategically important airfield, which earlier this year got struck by Ukrainian forces. Yes, there's no mistake here, Ukrainian forces, when Russians were deployed at this site. So Ukrainians did make a strike at this airbase earlier this year. In this video, you can see the room from a military school in Aleppo that was just captured by the rebels, and this is a Russian advisory room in that military school. They were training Assad's forces, they were weaponizing Assad's forces. A lot of it went through this room in this building. By the way, the pushing back of the Assad regime and army in Syria, it's not only losses for the Assad, it's direct losses for the Russian troops because Russian army was physically present, still is by the way, in Syria. The Ukrainian intelligence GUR released that Syrian blitz offensive caused some significant Russian losses. After 3 days of successful offensive actions by pro-Turkish forces in Syria, Russian troops suffered significant losses. Some units of the Russian state are surrounded. Hundreds of Russians are listed as missing in Syria. Earlier yesterday, the Russian commander of the Russian army, General Kyiv, in Syria got sacked and will be replaced. And among those losses is a special unit and a special drone unit. A large contingent of the Russian SSO special operators were eliminated in a surprise attack on Aleppo by the rebels. The unit was commanded by hero of Russia, Colonel Vadim Baikulov, conveniently now in Moscow. No rescue operations planned by Russia's general staff, so the Russian troops in Syria are on their own. Continuing on the losses topic, Assad's regime Brigadier General Adi Kozakh, head of the SAA military security branch in Hama, was reportedly eliminated by a drone strike in northern Hama. Now, a drone strike, that's important. Syrian rebels, Turkish-backed rebels, are using recon drones and kamikaze drones and drones that drop grenades. The style is very similar for what we see happening in Ukraine, and we're sure that the Russians are not training them because the Russians are backing Assad. So I guess it's the Ukrainians who are training them. Wow. All these shenanigans happening in Syria has sparked also tensions in the capital Damascus, and supposedly Russian telegram channels report that according to Arab sources, the head of Syrian intelligence, Brigadier General Hossam Luka, is allegedly attempting to organize a coup against Bashar al-Assad in Damascus. He is reportedly the informal leader of a group of government army officers trying to arrest individuals close to Bashar al-Assad. So, we don't know how this coup is going yet, we have no information, but if it goes through, it's going to be a full regime change. I already talked about the direct Russian losses, Russian personnel losses. We're talking here about hundreds of Russian personnel missing in Syria, but that's not it. Russia has assets, naval assets and aerial assets in 2 of the ports and airfields close to the Mediterranean Sea. You can see one of them is Kyiv airfield, other one is Tartus naval base. Now, here is the green, you can see the movement of the rebels. If they cut off Hama and move further south to Homs, they are cutting off these 2 airbase and airfields. And here is a Russian soldier commenting on it. If they make a sharp breakthrough to the west, they can capture Tartus and cut off Khomeimim, where all our planes are based from the main port of Syria. If that happens, it will be a complete failure. In Aleppo, among other buildings, all of the buildings captured, is also Assad's personal quarters. This is his personal palace, and the rebels are walking through it. It looks very much like Yanukovych Palace in Ukraine, in Kyiv. I went to it, I visited it. It's a massive, massive area. Looks a lot like it. Now there's a segment of captured equipment from the Assad's government forces. In this video you can see captured L-39 training aircraft and bombs, aerial bombs captured by the rebel forces. These are Soviet aircraft. And a lot of bombs. I don't know if they have any pilots or if they have trained any, but now they have a reason for it because they actually have an air force. A tiny one, an ancient one, but still an air force. By the way, here is that very same Turkish-backed Syrian National Army using or fielding American M113 infantry carriers, armored personnel carriers. Turkey is mechanizing these rebels very well, as you can see. The prize and jewel of the captured equipment is a Pantsir S air defense system, which is worth close to $10 million. It's a Soviet system. The rebels now have an air force, a very ancient one, and a Pantsir S air defense system. And they have, of course, captured Uragans and GMLRS systems. They captured artillery systems, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, almost everything the Soviet Union had. Now, this concludes my Syrian topics. I think you have seen most important videos that I can show and most important information. I tried to keep it very short for you to respect your time. I will keep you in the loop on the Wednesday what goes on in this civil war, because in my eyes it is one great conflict. The Russo-Ukrainian war expanded. It is not a different conflict in a different geographical location. It might be, but it's connected directly, the same players. Now we go to Russo-Ukrainian war. I'll keep it short for you. In Russia, Yekaterinburg, a polystyrene plant is burning. So this is part of sabotage. Polystyrene, this plant produced Ecofol foamed polystyrene. Damn it, I cannot pronounce this stuff. Anyway, this is used at the front line to hide from thermal imagers. So this material is used in blankets and materials and all kind of things you make with it to hide yourself from thermal imagers. So it's very much connected to military production. And it's burning. I love it. And you can see from a different angle here also. Always a good day when something is burning in Russia. To illustrate the vast deficit of manpower or meat in the Russian army, this happened on Friday, the video you see right here. New video from the Mutabor nightclub in Moscow during the raids by the Kremlin regime on Friday night to collect cannon fodder. Hundreds of men were taken away. All women were released, but the women passports were photographed. And this is not the only nightclub the OMON raided. 3 largest Moscow nightclubs were raided. Simachev, Mutabor and Mono. 3 largest. They're all filled to the brink with partying young men and women. All the men were taken. So Russia just got, with that one raid in one Friday, 3 raids one night, they got, I think, well over 1,000 new conscripts. Wow, we were very successful. Why do they need these conscripts? Believe it or not, in November, Russia suffered the largest losses of brainwashed idiots since the beginning of its large-scale invasion of Ukraine. This month, November, the enemy lost 45,720 of its soldiers as fertilizers and wounded, according to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Now, this is it's a massive amount. This is almost 3 divisions, right? Is it? Yeah, I'm talking about 3 motorized rifle divisions of the ground forces of the Army of the Russian Federation. And also they lost 307 tanks, 884 howitzers or artillery systems altogether, and 899 infantry carriers, armored personnel carriers. Now, altogether, in tanks and artillery systems, this is more than 3 billion of losses. This is why they need to raid the nightclubs. And of course, I'm not presenting this issue as one-sided. I'm acutely aware of the same issue in Ukrainian army. They're also facing a very similar deficit of manpower. It's not one-sided. Both have this issue. Russian conscripts and Storm Z units have received a new tutorial from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and I will read it to you. This is what the leaflet said. Keep honor to the end. To ensure instant elimination, aim for critical areas of the head. Temple, chin or cantarell. What is that? Centarel. I don't know what that is. Anyway, it's a tutorial how to do it with a grenade. You put it here or with the heart to keep your honor. I don't know what they're talking about. There is no honor in the Russian army, but I guess they like to play around. Yesterday, my friends, Kursk Oblast had some presents delivered by Ukrainians. Remember where Russia spent billions convincing to the world that Ukraine's missile strikes on Russian territory would be World War III? Well, now Ukraine is hitting them so often, it's not even news anymore. Yesterday, for example, Russia's Kursk region wiped out many Russian military brass. And it's not only infantry, it's officers. Yesterday, November 30th, 2024, a missile strike was launched against the command post of the 83rd Separate Airborne Assault Brigade. Airborne is a magic word in the Russian army. You know, these guys have gotten more training and have better weaponry than most of the Russian army. Airborne is the magic word. Any casualties revolving or resulting airborne losses is good casualties. The strike was carried out using the HIMARS. Wow, love to read it. The impact 200, which is eliminated, 12 military personnel and 4 officers, and 300, which is wounded, is 25 military personnel. The peculiarity of this strike is the fact that it was carried out during a ceremonial formation of the occasion of the anniversary of the formation of the brigade. They were trying to celebrate a birthday, but they got different kind of presents for that birthday. Now we jump to Russia, Moscow, because Putin just gave a signature to the budget, official budget of the Russian Federation for 2025. And looking at it, it's pretty military-faced. Putin has signed the budget law for 2025. The figures have been known for quite some time, so there are no surprises. But nonetheless, 32% of all expenditures amounting to 41.47 trillion rubles will be allocated to military spending, setting an absolute record. Very nice. Now, to illustrate to you that in Ukraine it might be some days it's -degrees, some days it's +degrees, but Rasputitsa is still there, meaning the rain and mud season, which is affecting both sides equally horribly. Here you can see a Ukrainian BMP, I'm sorry if I make a mistake here, pulling out a bus that is stuck in an endless mud pit. This is a situation almost all over the front, making movement with vehicles extremely difficult. So this will translate into more losses to the attacking side, which right now is the Russian army. Now, my friends, this concludes the Ukrainian topic, and I'm jumping for one single news. I'm jumping to the United States. It's of course connected with Donald Trump. I can already see people clicking away. I can hear the clicks. Oh, he said Trump is going to talk about United States internal politics. He's an Estonian. He doesn't know anything. Well, I'm still going to talk about it. Trump threatens the BRICS countries with 100% tariffs on goods if they create an alternative to the dollar in international trade. And I'll read you his tweet. Yeah. The idea that BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty United States dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker. His wording is always special. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Wow. Yeah, I'm not gonna comment much on it. I just wanted, we are on the same page. It's very important. I reported this. What I believe, as much as I know about the economy and the monarchical situation of the dollar on the world's markets, there is no way BRICS countries can create another currency that has the same characteristics as the dollar. There is just no possibility for it. There is nothing to replace the dollar with. No other country, no other currency has the same characteristics or potential on the world's markets. This is what I believe in. Now, my friends, as in every video, I have to thank people who make it possible for me to be a military blogger, and these are Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. And of course, if you are an active monthly member, I will be sending you out this Rehi patch. Only monthly members get it. Write to me in Buy Me a Coffee and I'll send it your way. Bob Foley, Miklos Nagy, Philip, Dominic Reiks, El Grego. Thank you, my friends. Until my next video, which will be on Wednesday, I'll keep you in the loop of all of these topics I just talked about. Be sure to be back. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.